Women's college basketball has caught fire. Whether you have watched it for your entire life or you are just starting to get into it, you cannot doubt that it is hitting its stride in this decade. No matter what category you want to look at, NIL valuations, viewership, social media content, or even game stats, it is going absolutely ballistic right now. This is due in large part to some of the most dominant college basketball players we have ever seen. Obviously, if you have been on the internet in the past year and a half, you've heard of the newly announced all-time leading scorer in D1 college basketball history.
Caitlyn Clark.
Caitlyn Clark.
Oh. Caitlyn Clark. Caitlyn Clark.
Hey, congratulations, Caitlyn Clark.
Caitlyn Clark. Caitlyn Clark.
She's taken the world by storm with her non-stop highlight, tantalizing shooting, half-court record-setting performances, night after night. In this video, I want to cover the years 2020 to present day, with Caitlyn Clark being one of the players I will talk about. However, I also plan on talking about many of the other jaw-dropping women's college basketball players we've seen emerge in this game since the turn of the decade. Like I said before, everyone knows Caitlyn Clark. She has lit the game on fire. She can go out and hang a triple-double at her own school's football field, scoring more than double the home field touchdowns in the whole season by the football team in her one single game there, as she put up 34 points in a triple-double in the win over DePaul, in which they filled 55,646 of the 69,250 seats, which, with the math, proves it's over 80% of the seats at Kinnick Stadium, which, by the way, set a single game attendance record for NCAA women's basketball. The next night, she'll go out and, in a bad shooting night, finish with 35 points and 9 dimes to beat the second best team in the country while tagging on 3 steals. She's truly become the embodiment of a dog, and everyone is loving it. She had a huge break onto the scene this past year as she went on a tear, not only in the regular season, but also in the postseason, scoring only under 30 twice in the last 7 games. Yeah, that's right. All of those games were tournament games. A quick breakdown of the scoring in those 7 games goes like this: 30 points on 53% shooting, 26 points on 64% shooting, 22 points on 35% shooting, 31 points on 50% shooting, 41 in back-to-back games on 58 and 48% shooting respectively, and 30 points on 41% in the national championship game. That same championship game is a great place to start talking about the dramatic viewership rise of the game. This game will more than likely be looked back on as an equivalent of an all-star game, as there were many future draft picks on these teams. There's Caitlyn Clark, Angel Reese, LaDeja Williams, Alexis Morris, Monica Sonano, Flau'jae Johnson, and the list could potentially go on. However, the reason I bring up this game is because it brought in 9.92 million viewers. Yeah, you heard that correctly. Nearly 10 million viewers for this jam-packed, star-studded championship game. This created a record for the most watched women's college basketball game of all time. This is up 103% from the previous year's championship game between South Carolina and UConn, in which South Carolina won in a convincing 15-point fashion, 64-49. While this game was a huge stepping stone for women's basketball, it did not stop there. January 27th, 1975. It was the first nationally televised women's college basketball game in history, where Maryland welcomed Immaculata to Cole Fieldhouse, but were quickly run out of their own gym as they got blown out 80-48. This continued Immaculata's superior 70s era. They went 74-4 from 1972 to 74, with a 35-game win streak sprinkled within that time. They were 3-time champs when they came to Cole Fieldhouse, and were the first women's team to play in Madison Square Garden. They were true trailblazers in more ways than one. Flash forward nearly 50 years, and the women's games are now being broadcast on nearly every television network that shows sports. On Fox Sports this season, though, the women have had 14 games televised to the men's 40 games. Don't worry though, women's basketball fans, as those 14 games have resulted in an average of 981,000 viewers to the men's average of 946,000 viewers. While the women do have a smaller sample size, almost 40,000 viewers is still a huge difference. This year on Fox Sports alone, women's basketball games viewership is up 48%, and a large game that could have boosted those numbers was the number 3 Hawkeyes showdown with the number 4 Buckeyes. In a record-setting game for Clark, in which she set the all-time Division I scoring record, she poured in 35 points on the day to get her revenge on Ohio State 93-83, and set the new scoring record at 3,685 points. Well, for that time. This top 5 matchup averaged 3.39 million viewers on Fox, which was the highest television viewership for a regular season women's basketball game on any network at all in 25 years. It peaked at 4.42 million, which set its own record for the most watched women's college basketball game in Fox Sports history. In their previous matchup between these two teams, it was televised on NBC on January 21st, and that held the previous season's high in viewers with 1.86 million. Ohio State won this matchup, but clearly we saw how Iowa responded. Back to Fox Sports, this highly touted matchup between the Birds and Bucks was the second most viewed college basketball draw on Fox this year, trailing only the Thanksgiving matchup between Michigan State and Arizona, men's basketball. The Hawkeyes have been a part of the highest viewed games on 6 major networks. These Birds don't need to fly south because they're going to be watched no matter what they do. They also sold out every single home game they played this year. The Indiana Fever, yes, the WNBA team, has even seen their ticket sales and prices increase as they hold the number 1 pick in this year's WNBA draft on April 15th, with all but 100% assurance that they will take the basketball legend Caitlyn Clark. Yes, I know I talked a lot about Clark, but it's tough not to mention the arguable NCAA women's college basketball GOAT when talking about influence on the game. Women's college basketball as a whole is succeeding with viewers, as it has risen nationally from last season by 60%. July 1st, 2021 marks the first day of NIL being legal in college sports. Since then, there have been players who have profited from it like it's nobody's business. One of them is the woman I have not stopped talking about yet. Shortly after Clark broke the D1 scoring record, CNN did an interview with Fanatics, where they learned that Caitlyn Clark's jerseys are flying right off the press and into boxes to go to fans' homes to wear. Fanatics started selling collegiate athletes apparel in 2022, and in over 2 years, Caitlyn Clark has already become the player to sell the most apparel ever. That's right, ever. She passed the likes of Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter, Zach Edey, Marvin Harrison Jr., Hunter Dickinson, and RJ Davis. You name the college athlete, she sold more personal apparel than any of them. She's truly on a completely different level right now. In that same article, they mentioned that she completely sold out her Topps trading card in under 10 minutes. Not only that, but she's already top 10 in Topps Now cards sold all time. Angel Reese, the LSU star, is another player worth naming, as last April, Reese dropped her own licensed jerseys on the NIL store. She signed with the NIL store later than many others had, including teammate Flau'jae Johnson, but that didn't matter at all. Right after she hit 1 million followers on Instagram, she dropped the jersey, and then they sold faster than you can say.
Go Tigers.
While her teammate Johnson had the 4th most sales of all time, Angel trailed only Men's National Player of the Year, Zach Edey. However, it isn't only jerseys that these players are cashing out on. According to On3, there are 4 women's basketball players in the top 100 NIL valuations: Paige Buchers, Flau'jae Johnson, Angel Reese, and Caitlyn Clark. Some of the deals these players have are Nike, Reebok, Powerade, Raising Cane's, Gatorade, who had its first student athlete, and State Farm, who added its first student athlete. Topps and Panini, Amazon, Nerf, but the most interesting of them all is the real budding rivalry. No, not that one. H&R Block and Intuit TurboTax. These women are not just getting paid, but their following on social media is off the charts. Angel Reese has gotten over 5 million total followers across Instagram, TikTok, and X, making her the third most followed female student athlete. She has accrued an extremely large following, and it shows very much. She's become one of the athletes who is able to produce on the court as well as produce on social media. Caitlyn, Flau'jae, and Paige are the other 3 of the 4 women's college basketball players with over 1 million Instagram followers. I had initially planned on breaking down every single player in the top 10 of every stat by conference that falls into my time frame, but I realized I could analyze the most real game changers of this 2020 to 2024 era that I want to cover by just looking at those leaders as a whole and not by conference. Everyone loves points. It's the most fun aspect of any game you watch, and it is a huge reason you can win the game. The era we are seeing right now is one of the most elite scoring eras we have seen in women's basketball ever. Caitlyn Clark was this year's leading scorer, and she averaged a whopping 31.9 points per game. But it doesn't stop there. Juju Watkins is after her, followed by Lucy Olsen, Chella Watson, Hannah Hidalgo, Elizabeth Kitley, Rachel Rose, De'Asia Fair, Izzy Higginbottom, McKenna Hofschild. Not a single player averaging less than 22 points per game within the top 10 in the nation. To put that into perspective, the leading scorer in the nation in the 2005 to 2006 season was LSU's Simone Augustus, who averaged 22.7 points per game. Now don't get me wrong, nearly 23 a game is getting buckets, but that would rank 7th in the nation today. Scoring is much more elite right now. The last time we saw this type of scoring, and it is wild to how similar the stats are, was in the 2016 to 17 season. Previous D1 women's basketball points record holder Kelsey Plum averaged 31.7 points per game, followed by Jenny Sims, Precious Hall, Des Ramos, Larissa Lurkin, Alexis Peterson, Randy Brown, Tori Jankowska, Kelsey Mitchell, and Camille Zimmerman. Such similar numbers to this year. But the stats don't stop there though. We all know Caitlyn Clark is a record setter, and she ranks 3rd all-time in field goals attempted, 2nd in threes, and obviously 1st in points to name a few of the stats. However, there are a shockingly amount of other players who are in similar company in these stats. The aforementioned De'Asia Fair and Elizabeth Kitley rank in the top 20 in field goals all-time in women's basketball, as well as Sierra Hooks and former 3rd overall pick in the WNBA draft, Maddie Siegrist. Once again, I mentioned De'Asia Fair, but this time she ranks 1st in field goal attempts all time, followed by Kyla McMakin and then Clark. It gets busy here when we talk about three-pointers. Taylor Robertson sits atop the ranks, with Clark right behind her, shortly followed by Kendall Spray, Taylor Mikesell, Katie Benzin, and once again, De'Asia Fair, followed after that by Rachel Childress, all in the top 10 in made three-pointers of all time. Finally, Clark is not the only one within this era I'm covering to be up there in scoring, as De'Asia Fair sits at 5th all-time and Ashley Jones sits at 9th all-time. 3 all-time scoring leaders in the top 9 playing in this decade. While scoring is very important, it's overall important to produce points in one way or another. Points produced and points produced per game are pretty self-explanatory stats. It's how many points a player produces per 100 possessions through made shots, assists, and offensive boards. We have some ballers in that category as well. Clark, Fair, Ionescu, Jones, and Hooks are all top 10 all-time in points produced. Additionally, we see Clark, Fair, Carter, Siegrist, and Ionescu are all top 13 all-time in points produced per game in the women's college basketball history books. Finally, the box plus minus is a pretty good way of telling the game, as it shows the contributions a player has when they enter and exit the sidelines of the game. 7 of the top 12 highest box plus minuses in a women's basketball career featured players that played from 2020 to 2024. In second place, we have last year's number 1 pick, Aaliyah Boston. After that, a projected top 5 pick this year, Cameron Brink. Paige Buchers in 4th. Sabrina Ionescu in 8th. Caitlyn Clark in 9th. Other former number 1 pick Ryan Howard in 11th. And Lauren Cox in 12th. A lot of people might want to discredit these women with the claims of shot chuckers, playing against weak competition, or not playing against defense. The stats show that there have been many advancements in this game. It seems like the scoring in the collegiate game has become much more diverse. This season, we finished with the 2nd least amount of free throw attempts and the 4th least amount of free throw makes since the 1981-82 season. This goes to show you these players are scoring a lot, and not a whole lot of these points are coming from the free throw line. With all these recurring leaders, you'd think we'd have the same people winning every single year. But
perfectly balanced, as all things should be.
2017 to 2023, we have had no repeat champions. That may not seem like a super long time, but that is the longest streak without a repeat champ since the 10-year stretch from 1985 to 1995. We're seeing diversity both in scoring and in winning, so this is an extremely fun game to watch right now. So to summarize all these stats, we are experiencing some of the best collegiate scoring the women's game has ever seen, with the lowest player averaging 22 points a game and the leader averaging almost 32 a game. We're seeing these stupid scoring performances on nearly the lowest free throw attempts and makes in over 40 years. Oh, and in case you thought these were just bucket getters in this decade, we're also seeing people who can go out and produce wherever they need to produce, whether it's getting buckets, dropping dimes, or cleaning the glass in order to help their team. We've also seen some of the sharpest shooters from distance that this game has ever produced. We're seeing teams go from champs to out in the early stages of March. You know what that means. We are all witnesses, people. To wrap this video up, I want to talk about the recognition that these women are earning, not just in the sports world, but in the world in general. I already talked about the jersey sales and how you're seeing young people and older people sporting an Angel Reese, Caitlyn Clark, Cameron Brink, Aaliyah Boston, you name the jersey, they're wearing it. Goes to show how national this game has gone in this decade. People will sport hoopers no matter who you are. If you can hoop, you can hoop. We have also seen a member of this decade's collegiate team, Sabrina Ionescu, debut her own shoe in the WNBA, the Sabrina Once, as she is one of 12 WNBA basketball players who has created and debuted their own shoes. Keeping the topic with Ionescu, she has broken huge barriers as she partook in the first cross-league three-point contest with Steph Curry this year. Despite losing, she put up an insane 26 points in the contest, sinking her first 7 shots and hit all but one of her 9 money balls. I'm sure you saw the headlines, but she scored as many points in her single round of the contest as the winning scorer had in the NBA three-point contest when Dame had 26 this year. She has been cooking in the WNBA as well, averaging nearly 16 a game on 41, 38, 91 career splits, leading the league in three-pointers made with 3.6 this past year. She did say she hopes to come back next year for another showdown with Steph and hopes to bring along some company to match with Steph's. We've also seen NBA legends giving them their flowers. Steph congratulated Cameron Brink on entering her name into the draft.
Cam, just want to say congratulations. Huge announcement, huge milestone, huge accomplishment. Preparing yourself for the WNBA draft, but I know you still got some unfinished business in the NCAA tournament, but take a moment to pat yourself on the back for a job well done to get to this point. The best is yet to come, and I can't wait to see where your career takes you, but congratulations, WNBA. Let's league her.
Shaq has been a huge fan of the women's college game too, as he recently declared Caitlyn Clark as the GOAT of women's college ball.
Yeah, but she's incredible. Congratulations to her and her family.
Yeah.
Like the crazy thing is I'm just seeing her last year when they played LSU, but she's phenomenal. I'm going to go on the record and say she's the best female collegiate player ever.
Ever?
Well,
I don't know about you. You
ever.
heard of Cheryl Miller,
Ever.
Maya Moore?
I said what I said. Ever.
Diana Taurasi?
I said what I said.
No disrespect.
Listen,
Hey, Caitlyn Clark is amazing.
This is my opinion.
Candace
I'm not
Walker?
changing it.
Listen,
I said what I said.
Nobody's ever shot it like her. No.
Not only that, but Diesel also took the time to visit his alma mater to walk LSU's beloved Angel Reese out on the court for her senior day. as she dropped a cool 22-14. We're even seeing the king call Clark so cold last year during her insane tournament run. In fact, I saw an article that said from early March, there was data showing Clark was rivaling LeBron for the most Googled player in states, as Clark was the most Googled in 21 states versus LeBron in 29. That's GOAT talk if you ask me. Thank you all for watching the video, and I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed making it. It took a lot of time to gather all this data and organize everything into a good format. So if you did enjoy it, it would be greatly appreciated if you could like the video and subscribe. If you know anyone who would like videos like this, send this video to them and leave a comment about something you may want to see next. Have a great rest of your day, and thanks for watching.